The Darkness 2 was originally released in 2012 and was developed by Digital Extremes, which I didn't even realize until watching the opening credits. But some of the gameplay stuff here kinda adds up that Digital Extreme was behind this one. Although the first entry was originally made by Starbreeze Studios, but that game never got ported to anywhere else, and technically neither of this game did, but hey, had a PC port, and the PC port is eternal. This game does feature a recap of the first game for people who didn't play it. So the main premise of the sequel is that after years of the first game with Jackie pretty much going years without using the darkness to keep it under control, he ends up getting attacked at a restaurant, and due to the hit, it's having to use the darkness to pretty much bail him out, and as a result, all the darkness is back to try and take over his body. Meanwhile, Jack has to figure out who put the hit on him in the first place, and the web of scenarios this goes through does end up making things more complicated than they appear to be. Something I also really like is the fact that there are also moments where Jackie will just start talking to the camera, recounting events from his life, and I find it really well to help personalize him. I like how they handle things in the final one, and also helps that in a game where you're constantly in first person, these segments do give you moments to see Jackie aside from, looking in the mirror, so it does help more to personalize him as a main character and also flesh him out more, which is a super cool way of handling things, and these little monologue moments are freaking great. This game just gets going right off the bat, like it just immediately opens up and nope, things are already happening, go, go, go. There are little break spots in between where you're just chilling out in Jackie's house and everything, but for the most part, it is more straight to the point, everything with the levels and what we're going on with the action gameplay, but I just love the fact you do the little break spots that you can pretty much just speed run through if you want to, but you can take in a moment, talk to everybody, realize just how many voice recordings they had for these NPCs. My goodness, some of them had new things to say for minutes on end.
News team at Newswatch. Popular restaurant and night spot Mama Lucchese's was the scene of a violent explosion and gunfight tonight. Details remain sketchy at this time. Police claim that emergency service response was hampered due to construction in the area. No word of any injuries at this hour. The MTA is still unable to explain the cause of a tunnel collapse in the Canal Street subway station. Foul play is suspected, but they have no leads at this time. Officials say subway service on the line may not resume for several weeks. And now for Newswatch 6 weather. Expect clear skies tonight across the city, with overnight temperatures dipping down into the low 50s. But don't expect this wonderful fall weather to last. We're tracking a nasty storm system making its way down from Ontario, Canada, that is expected to bring heavy winds and rain for the remainder of the week. Delays are expected.
Tonight on Channel 18 Public Access at 9 p.m. Settle in for Computer Games with Scooter James.
The radio kept having so many things going on. It is freaking nuts how much they did for these little break areas just to have things in them and things to just interact with. That's pretty cool. Also, like, you check the mirror in Jackie's apartment, you can't see if they did properly animate certain things like Jackie running, even though realistically you never see him do animations since the whole game is in first person, but it's cool to add that little detail to reflection and we'll see what Jackie's doing. Although I don't think his mouth moves when he talks, so there is that winter aspect. So the main gimmick Digital Extremes want with the gameplay is quad wielding, where essentially you can also have like two small guns or just one big gun on hand, but you also have the darkness tendrils along with you, each having their own dedicated button. Despite the idea of trying to be like, oh, wielding 4 weapons, not really, since one just does a strike that's basically the equivalent of using like a quick melee attack in any other first-person shooters, and the other one, while it can grab things, it can grab enemies and still do swipes, but if it's doing something like grabbing like a car door as a shield, then you can't do a swipe, so just end up throwing the thing at the enemies. So there are limitations to it. So trying to say it's quadruple wielding is a bit of a hyperbole with how the gameplay works. I do love the fact that this gameplay wants you in the action constantly, because of the fact that you get your health refill for killing enemies in their hearts, and it's a pretty quick process. It wants to just go, go, go right in. And this was some similarities I saw with Dark Sector, at the fact that the darkness can grab ammo from you from a distance, granted nowhere near the distance of Hayden's glaive in Dark Sector, but also just stuff where you want to be more action oriented, want you to go in and use your abilities. But unlike Dark Sector, where doing that is way more dangerous, Hayden's more way more vulnerable. Jackie can just go in and go nuts with it, unless you're in the direct impact of light, because light will completely not only remove your abilities of darkness, it will also handicap what you can see in favor of the game trying to emphasize shoot this light source. And there are some light sources that can just be shot easily, some require more things to shoot a generator, and some can't be broken at all because apparently just having a little metal little thing in front of it is enough for bullets to just be bulletproof. That thing will work. There are stuff like that, and some enemies do carry flashlights. Granted, they carry these big, like, industrial-sized lights. That's kind of ridiculous, since any amount of light will just take out the darkness, so kind of overkill. At least those enemies vulnerable, but I guess they don't want the enemies to be super powerful. But it's kind of cool aspect of they want you to be in the action constantly. Although, don't go eating every heart you see, because sometimes you may need that health pickup. You can grab enemies and also kill them with the default grab ability in order to get health back, but the animation takes a while. Granted, you have invincibility frame, so you're more during the animation, but it's more snappier just to kill an enemy and eat their heart from their body and just keep things moving. You do have a Darkling familiar that can pretty much help you out, although without anything in the skill tree, it basically can only do things over the game the size it can, while one upgrades the ability just to throw at enemies yourself. Otherwise, he can support you at times, and sometimes is stuff for pop aggression, where he does support you, which is a pretty cool aspect. I just wish he was more involved as more the player could do, because while I didn't fully play the first Darkness game, I did play the demo and know that the Darkling stuff he could do was really crazy, so here I wish he could do more, but he does enough. There are also segments where you do play as the Darkling, and surprisingly, only really twice in the game do they actually have this mechanic, which I'm really surprised because I know the game came out nowadays, it probably had like 5 or 7, because people love playing a mechanic and using it over and over and over nowadays. There's also New Game Plus, which means that, hey, they fought the skill tree, now you can do it in New Game Plus, or just annihilate enemies with your overpowered abilities. Granted, you animate enemies regardless, because freaking even the most basic enemies early in the game can just get shredded by the darkness. So having even your carryover late game abilities would be even more nuts. But that's what you can do if you want to pretty much try and get all the skill tree abilities, since you won't be able to pick and choose what you want, since you probably won't be able to get all of them. Now there are relics with the levels, and do give you a huge amount of experience you can use in order to pretty much get abilities, but I doubt they all pretty much let you do it on the first run. I also like the fact that the relics also have cool little lore bits, information you can get glean from them as well. So it also just adds to the story, because I know that the Darkness IP is based on a comic book series, so it is pretty cool. It's like when I try to have the freaking cel-shaded comic art style, but also the whole entire aspect of also having these relics that do add more and more to the world as the main game is more focused on the central plot, you know? So it's cool to have these little side tidbits to pretty much add more and more to the game. And speaking of adding more, this came under an era where we had to have some multiplayer aspect shoehorned in, and thus we got the Vendetta mode, because in the main game, some characters do mention having some quote-unquote new guys handle some tasks, and the multiplayer mode characters are those new guys, where it is a weird idea where it is a co-op thing set to nerf the characters, but as a result, you have 4 characters who basically have a fraction of Jackie's abilities all playing together. Ideally playing together because I played the whole entire thing solo, one of my friends play Darkness too, but it is a weird aspect where you go from Jackie, this big behemoth who's still vulnerable and slight, freaking die easily because of the result from that, but you're a behemoth constantly going in, recovering health, going in, guns blazing, to characters who basically have one big ability each. You have another side ability, but one big ability, and then pretty much that's it. So you have to play way more carefully, and honestly, if the main game was trying to be set apart differently for first-person shooters by having the whole entire quad with a mechanic, the multiplayer mode completely undoes all of that. Like, it's not a bad mode, not bad in the slightest. It's still fun to do, but it's just a weird aspect where any of the big rush of action pauses I give for the main story mode is pretty much much gone here. I'm practically playing what feels like any other first-person shooter, but now maybe I get one ability every few minutes. So it's a one entire weird aspect to include. Like, I get it, you don't want the characters to be as powerful as Jackie, but if they're all pretty much basically interchangeable as a result and basically don't have much going on, kind of undermines the whole entire point of having this whole entire mode, this kind of game for the Darkness 2. Like, I know it's here, sell more copies to add co-op, because during the era, many games will shoehorn in some multiplayer feature, because publisher demands. But here it feels like the exact antithesis to what the main game was trying to do with the gameplay. Like, it just feels so weird. I do like the multiplayer characters have their own personality, have their own conversations with the characters they're talking to, and the idea is that them starting out just doing a task for Jackie's orders, but end up doing a whole entire thing that ends up assisting Jackie on the sidelines that Jackie wasn't even aware about. It is a whole entire cool aspect to add to the game, and adds more to narratives, and gives the side characters also more to do, which is super cool to add in. But gameplay wise, it just feels weird, especially when for boss battles they can't do what the main game does, which is they have in extra fodder come in, you know, so you get more HP. Instead here, when boss fights happen, except for like the last one, generally no extra fodder comes in to fight you, because otherwise with your basic abilities you'd be too overwhelmed. But because of the result, that means you get no healing. It's you die fast in this game, especially in the multiplayer mode. It does mean that you're in a state where you constantly feel like you're being way too careful. At least for me, I had to be extremely careful, hiding from cover very carefully, and it just felt like I am now playing a slow first-person shooter, trying to regain my health bit by bit, my small little HP bar, which feels like the exact opposite of what the main game wanted me to do. It feels the opposite of what the developers wanted me to do. It probably could have helped if I had freaking friends and co-op to help out. Maybe it could have been different. Maybe it could have changed things entirely. But as the way I played it solo, it just felt like I was basically now playing a more standard first-person shooter, which isn't bad at all. But for a main game that was so fun and full of adrenaline pumping, this felt like the exact opposite, and not in the best way. It's not a bad mode, far from it. But I guess if I actually had co-op partners, it would have gone a lot smoother. Overall, I really like the Darkness 2, and I'm glad I definitely played Dark Sector before playing this game, because I could see the influences and stuff from Dark Sector at Digital Extremes probably learned making that game, some mechanics and ideas that they carried over into this game. On top of also carrying over the same engine, the Evolution engine, which I believe they also still use for Warframe to this day. They also use it for the Star Trek 2013 game, and are using it for the unreleased Soulflame game. So it is cool to see Edge come back and see go from Dark Sector, which tried a more realistic style, though it does look kind of awkward and janky with the visuals, to a more cel-shaded comic book style, and it looks damn gorgeous in this freaking game. I love the way the game looks. It holds up fantastically. So there's a bunch of cool aspects, because the gameplay is freaking cool. The story is relatively short via the multiplayer mode to try and add more to the runtime aspect, and I know this game does end on a cliffhanger that has not been resolved since ever, really. I don't think it's ever got a resolution. It just ends on a cliffhanger, which I know upset people back then, and still sucks to see, especially since the gameplay is so good, the game's so fun, and kind of one of the things you can wish that they got a third entry to not only finish things, but also if Digital Extreme specifically were to come back to do it, I feel like they could do more cool things with the gameplay, because of the fact they took some of the cool ideas they had for Dark Sector and repurposed it here and fleshed it more out, which is super cool to see developers do that. Overall, Darkness 2 is a cool game and everything. It's a game I probably should have played way earlier, because I remember when it was brand new and everything, but I just didn't play it. Hell, I had an opportunity to buy the first game at $10. I still didn't buy that one either. I should have done that one too. By the way, Darkness 2 is freaking cool. Another cool game for Digital Extremes. That is all.